Hello and welcome to Outside Views, the channel where we explore the realities of Brexit and its profound, often surprising impact on Britain's economy, politics and society. Today we're tackling an issue that strikes at the heart of the Brexit debate: immigration. One of the loudest promises of Brexit was to take control of Britain's borders and reduce immigration. Yet here we are in 2024, and the UK has achieved something quite unexpected. It now holds the record for the highest growth rate in permanent immigration among all OECD countries. Let's let that sink in for a moment. The very policy project that was designed to reduce migration has resulted in Britain experiencing one of the most significant surges in immigration in its modern history. In 2023, the UK welcomed 750,000 new permanent immigrants. That's an astonishing 52% increase compared to 22 and represents the fastest growth in immigration among developed nations. Even the United States, traditionally the world's top destination for migrants, didn't see growth on this scale despite admitting 1.2 million new permanent immigrants that same year. And this dramatic rise in immigration raises several critical questions. How has Britain, post-Brexit, become such a magnet for immigrants? And what sectors are driving this growth and why? And perhaps most importantly, what does this say about the promises of Brexit? And what does it say about the state of the country today? To understand how we arrived at this point, we need to go back to the Brexit campaign itself. Immigration was arguably the defining issue of the 2016 referendum. Campaigners for Leave argued that membership in the European Union had left Britain unable to control its borders. Freedom of movement, a fundamental principle of the EU, meant that any EU citizen could live and work in the UK. And this became a lightning rod for criticism, particularly in areas that felt economically neglected and saw high levels of EU migration. Leave campaigners promised that Brexit would put an end to this. It would allow Britain to design its own immigration system, which they did, reducing overall numbers, which they didn't, and prioritizing high-skilled workers. The mantra of taking back control resonated deeply with voters, and many saw Brexit as the solution to what they perceived as an uncontrolled influx of migrants. Fast forward to today, and the reality is far more complicated. While Brexit has indeed reduced migration from the EU, it has simultaneously opened the door to significant increases in migration from outside Europe. The new points-based immigration system introduced after Brexit prioritizes skilled workers regardless of where they come from. And this shift has led to a dramatic rise in migration from countries like India, Nigeria, and the Philippines. A key driver for this surge has been Britain's acute labor shortages, particularly in critical sectors like health and social care. More than half of the migrants who moved to the UK in 2023 for work reasons did so on a health and care worker visa. And this program was introduced in 2020 as a response to staffing crisis in the NHS and care homes. While it has helped to alleviate some of the strain on these vital services, it also highlights a stark reality. The UK, despite Brexit's promises, has become more dependent than ever on foreign workers to keep its economy and public services functioning. And this reliance isn't limited to health and care. Sectors like agriculture, hospitality, construction, and logistics have also struggled to fill vacancies since Brexit and the end of freedom of movement. And these industries, which had long relied on EU workers, found themselves facing severe labor shortages almost overnight. The government has tried to address this with temporary visa schemes and by expanding the points-based system to include a wider range of jobs. But these measures have often felt reactive, aimed at plugging immediate gaps rather than building a sustainable long-term strategy. And one of the more ironic aspects of this story is the former government's rhetoric on immigration. And despite these record-breaking numbers, ministers continue to insist that they are committed to reducing net migration. Earlier this year, former Home Secretary Sola Braverman declared that the government's goal was to bring net migration below 100,000, a target that now seems utterly unrealistic. Instead, immigration numbers are at their highest levels in modern British history. And this contradiction between rhetoric and reality is emblematic of the broader challenges Britain faces in the post-Brexit era. Brexit was supposed to give Britain the tools to control its borders and reduce migration, as I said, and instead it has created a situation where the country is more than ever reliant on foreign workers, so they need even more immigrants. And this brings us to the broader implications of these immigration trends. On the one hand, there is no denying the economic benefits of migration. Immigrants contribute significantly to the economy, filling critical roles that might otherwise go unfilled. In the health and care sectors, for example, migrant workers are not just valuable, they are mere essential. And without them, the NHS and care homes would face even greater crises than they already do. But there are challenges too. High levels of immigration put additional pressure on housing, on schools, and on public services. And the UK is already facing a severe housing crisis with a chronic shortage of affordable homes. Adding hundreds of thousands of new residents each year only exacerbates this issue. Similarly, while immigrants help to staff the NHS, they also add to the demand for its services, creating a delicate balancing act. And public opinion on immigration remains deeply divided. While surveys show that attitudes have become a bit more positive in recent years, there is still a significant portion of the population that views high immigration levels as a problem. And this division creates political challenges as parties try to balance economic realities with public sentiment. And for the former Conservative government, which has built much of its political identity on promises to reduce immigration, these record-breaking numbers were particularly awkward. They just left all this to Starmer now. The UK's record-breaking immigration numbers are not occurring in a vacuum, though. Across the OECD, permanent migration reached an all-time high in 2023, with more than 6.5 million people moving to member countries. This reflects broader global trends, including economic migration, family reunification, and displacement due to conflict and climate change. But among OECD countries, Britain's experience stands out, not just because of the sheer scale of the increase, but because of the political contradictions it reveals in that country. So, what does all this mean for Britain's future? The surge in immigration highlights the critical role that migrants play in the UK economy, particularly in the sectors that are struggling to recruit domestic workers. And it also underscores the need for a more honest and coherent approach to immigration policy. Rather than continuing to promise reductions that are both unrealistic and counterproductive, the government needs to focus on managing immigration in a way that benefits both the economy and society. And this includes addressing the pressures that high levels of immigration can place on housing, schools, and equally on public services. And it also means acknowledging that migration is not just an economic necessity, but a reflection of Britain's place in an interconnected world. Brexit was supposed to mark a new era of sovereignty and control. But as we see with these immigration numbers, the reality is far more complex and far less in line with the promises that were made. So, thank you for watching Outside Views. And if you found this analysis somewhat insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below the video. What do you think about the UK's record-breaking immigration numbers? Is this a sign of success, or does it reveal deeper contradictions in the post-Brexit landscape? Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and stay engaged. And the next video is right here in the end screen.